Hi everyone, welcome to my channel where I discuss all things human design. On today's episode, I'm going to be focusing on your human design chart and the workplace. If you know your human design type, let me know in the comments below. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I've linked several different resources in the description box below where you can find out more about your human design type for free. Now, today's episode is going to be a little bit different in that I will be focusing on various aspects of the human design chart and not necessarily just one human design type. So make sure that you have your chart in front of you as I go through different parts of the chart and how it relates to the workplace. Let's start with the root. The root is one of two pressure centers in our human design chart, and it's located at the bottom of our chart. Everybody obviously has a root, however, some of us have a defined root and some of us have an undefined root. If we're looking at the root is where we get our momentum. And as I mentioned, it's a pressure center. So when you have this defined in your chart, you might actually be motivated and more apt to taking on opportunities that are high pressure. You might actually enjoy a high pressure work environment and that might actually excite you. Versus if you have an undefined root center, you may be able to work for a period of time under pressure. However, long term, this might feel overwhelming and it may lead to your not self theme, whatever that might be. As a personal example, I am a generator energy and my not self theme is frustration. And many times I found myself in high pressure situations where I've agreed to too much, I've put too much on my plate. I didn't really understand how to say no in the moment, and I started going after an opportunity and working in a situation that was high pressure. And while I was able to handle it for a period of time, eventually I felt so frustrated that I had to quit that opportunity and get out of it. I literally had to say no to what was not serving me to allow more yes to come in. And just having that awareness has really helped me in navigating future opportunities that I take on, understanding if it will be a high pressure role versus a role that won't have me necessarily being under pressure and allow me the space to create and work at my own pace. This is especially important if those of you that are watching are currently looking for a new job opportunity. Having that awareness of if you enjoy working under pressure versus if you don't necessarily operate well under pressure will really help you when you're navigating your job. Another area I want to chat about are the transformation arrows. These are located on the outside of our chart, and you'll notice that you will have 4 arrows, 2 on the left side and 2 on the right side. Some of these arrows may be facing left, some of these arrows may be facing right, or you may have all your arrows facing left or all your arrows facing right. When it comes to transformations, there are 16 different options here, and they are not specific to your human design type. I am not going to be speaking from the traditional sense of digestion, environment, awareness, and perspective. I'm actually going to be thinking about this from the workplace environment. All arrows that are facing left are considered more active energy, and all arrows that are facing right are considered more passive energy. So bear with me. I hope that I don't lose you here and you've got your chart in front of you and you're looking at your arrows, because this is going to be super important to understanding how you operate when it comes to the workplace. We're going to start with the active energy, which would be an arrow at the top facing left. If you have your arrow at the top facing left, you may find that you're extremely routine oriented, that you actually thrive on routine, and you may even enjoy having a set routine, whether that's a meditation in the morning or a coffee in the morning. Maybe you like to talk with your team in the morning and then get to inbox 0 and you sort of have your own plan. This is something that is usually really important to those that have this active energy here. And when you are not in your routine, or you find that you missed your workout or you missed your morning meditation and then you just rush yourself to work and getting to it, you may find that your day feels a little off or a little sort of disorganized or disheveled. Versus if you have this arrow in the passive energy, meaning that the top arrow on the left is facing right, you may find that you don't really operate well on routine, that you actually prefer having the option of, sometimes doing meditation in the morning, sometimes doing meditation in the afternoon, sometimes having early morning meetings, sometimes having evening meetings. Again, this would be super interesting and important to understand if you're currently in the job hunt stage right now, and you need to recognize, is this job something that's going to be a strict routine that's high pressure and I like that, or is this something that is not a lot of pressure, it's going to give me a lot of flexibility, and that's what I'm looking for. So really thinking about that. When we look at the left side at the bottom arrow, this is about our environment. And again, I'm not going to go into the whole talk on transformations, but if we think about environment from the workplace perspective, if you have this facing in the active energy, which means left facing arrow, you may find that it's really important to have a set space where you're doing your work, whether that's at the kitchen table or a desk space. You may find that you really want to work in an office space and maybe you haven't been able to this year and you've been having that struggle. I know I have a friend, for example, who really loves working in a co-working space, and she used to work in a co-working space, and now because of the pandemic she's not able to, but what she started to do was twice a week open up Zoom and allow people to join in on a Zoom and kind of have this co-working day via Zoom. So it's not that they're talking or interacting with one another, they just have this visualization. Being able to see other people also working helps motivate them and get them going. If you are a manager and your team is struggling with workplace productivity, is this something that you could do to foster that? Maybe having open work hours together on a Zoom where it's not about having a meeting or talking, but it's about just seeing each other and having some of that visibility that a lot of us are missing this year. If this is more passive energy, so this arrow is facing right, then you may find that you work from bed really well, or you bring your laptop into the bathtub, or you're able to travel and be on the road and working, and it's not affecting you as much as someone with a left facing arrow. Now, something important here I do want to mention is that just because arrows are facing left or right, this is not the end all tale to the human design chart. There's actually so many more areas that have to do with our workplace environment and how we operate, just even understanding what is defined in our chart versus what is undefined when it comes to energy centers. This will also play a huge role. For example, if you have a open solar plexus or a defined or closed solar plexus, this is going to play a big role in understanding if you're taking on the energy of others in your environment, or you're able to have a set sort of energy and you're not taking on that energy of others. I've explained the open and closed solar plexus a couple of times in my videos, so just make sure to check those out. And I've also linked a post in the description box all about the solar plexus where you can learn about the undefined versus defined solar plexus. Another personal example, I have a open solar plexus and I have a right facing passive energy in this position. So even though I can work from anywhere and I am often found in my kitchen working, and sometimes I'm in my office, I actually prefer to work from home and not necessarily in a workplace that's traditional, because I am affected by the energy around me, and it's important for me to sort of have my space when I'm working and not necessarily take in the energy of others while I'm trying to concentrate. Moving on to the right side of the chart, we're going to start again with the top arrow. If this is in the active position, you may find that you're extremely detail oriented and that you prefer work that is more detail oriented versus big picture oriented, which would be the right facing arrow in this position. So this again is super important if you're looking for a new job, understanding if the work that's in front of you that you're thinking about applying for is more detail oriented or more passive energy, which would be big picture oriented. I love doing corporate readings for teams and seeing that there's usually a mix of those that are detail oriented versus big picture oriented. And there's nothing wrong with this. It's actually something that I think is really beneficial to have both energies on a team and being able to see how one another operate. The last arrow I'll be discussing, which is the bottom right arrow. If this is in the active energy, you may tend to be more type A when it comes to how you're going to actually work on a project. So it is possible to be big picture oriented and type A down here, which means that you see the big picture, it's a more passive energy, but then you really focus on the details and you might be really good at creating a business plan or a plan of action, understanding, what are the goals, how to reach the KPIs. This is something that's going to become very natural for you when it comes to how you show up in the workplace. If we're looking at human design terms, this would be considered a specific manifesting type, so you'd be considered specific. And I'm really excited to post a video on manifestation and what it means to be specific or non-specific. But for the purpose of this video and the work environment, just having that awareness that if you have this in the active area, you may be more prone to that personality that likes to have everything laid out and have an organized plan. Obviously, if it is facing right, then it's a passive energy, which means that you may have a more loose business plan when it comes to getting work done. You may be detail oriented with a project, or you may be big picture oriented. It doesn't matter, but it's all about sort of being non-specific and not necessarily creating those details. An example here might be if you are hosting a webinar on something and you had an active arrow in the bottom arrow of the right side here, you may find that you want to have a set timeline for the webinar, that at 6 p.m. it's going to start, at 6:05 you're going to introduce everyone, from 6:05 to 6:15 you're going to talk about topic A, from 6:15 to 6:30 about topic B, and so on. Whereas someone with a type B, which would be a right-facing arrow here, they may have the same webinar, but rather than having a strict timeline, they may just say, hey, there's gonna be a webinar, it's gonna be at this hour, here's the topic, here's the link, and they just will let go of what necessarily is meant to happen. They kind of just create everything, put all the actions in place, but then they let it unfold as it's meant to unfold. And there's nothing wrong with either. It's just having that awareness of how you yourself operate versus how those around you and on your team operate, because obviously it can be extremely frustrating sometimes when you maybe are more of that type A energy and you like to stay focused with a set plan, and then maybe everyone else on your team happens to be the type B energy, and that's actually not necessarily in alignment for them, and that's not how they operate. So how can we just have a greater awareness of how all of us show up individually as well as collectively on our teams? The last topic I want to talk about today when it comes to human design and the workplace is communication. And there is a lot to say on communication style. I could talk about various gates, I could talk about the throat chakra, but for the purpose of this video and the length of time of this video, I'm going to just focus on energy types versus non-energy types. If you've seen my most recent post on energy types versus non-energy types, you may already know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, basically we can separate all 5 human design types into 2 buckets, which are energy and non-energy. The energy are the pure generators and the manifesting generators. They create their own energy, as I've mentioned in previous videos, through doing what they love, and they have a defined sacral. And then the non-energy types are projectors, manifestors, and reflectors, who have an open or undefined sacral, and they get their energy from generator energy. And when it comes to communication style, there are 2 very distinct ways of communicating that I think are super crucial and important to understanding the workplace environment. For the energy types, which are generator and manifesting generators, they are really good at that binary communication, those yes/no questions. When you ask a generator an open-ended question, they may still respond to you because we're conditioned as humans to respond to the questions in front of us, but they may not necessarily be as confident as a non-energy type would be in answering an open-ended question. For example, as a generator, if you ask them, hey, what do you think about the team event? What should we do for it? Where should we go to lunch? What do you think about this project? Those are all very open-ended questions and can seem a little bit daunting and overwhelming for a generator energy. If, for example, though, you ask a generator, hey, do you want to have the event in the morning or afternoon? They will be able to answer in a much more decisive way because they can actually, in their body feel, is it a yes for morning or is it a no for morning, and then be able to come up with an answer. Versus the other non-energy types, which are, as I mentioned, projectors, manifestors, and reflectors, they actually operate really well with those open-ended thought-based questions. So it's amazing to see when we have that realization that, again, if a generator is trying to answer that, they can actually go to their non-energy type friends in the workplace and ask them for help on making a decision. This is something that I have done several times in my work and in my career, when I've been trying to answer an open-ended question, I literally go over and I ask those that I know are projectors or manifestors or reflectors, and I say, hey, what would you do about this situation? What do you think about this project? And generally they will have more of an answer and ability to have a thought or an ability to really come up with how to respond to that. Because again, generator energy is here to respond, and they do that through yes, no. And then the other energy types, the non-energy types, are actually really good at those open-ended questions. I realize that this can seem a little confusing, so I'm going to give a real-life example and step out of the workplace just for a second to really make sure that this communication piece is clear. I probably will do a full video on communication because it's so important, but just to give an example, let's say that you are two generators. You're a generator and your friend is a generator, and you ask them, hey, where do you want to go to lunch? Your friend might respond, I don't care, where do you want to go? And you'll say, I don't care, where do you want to go? And it'll just go back and forth because this is an open-ended question. If you approach the generator friend of yours, do you want pizza for lunch? They will respond with either a yes or a no, and you'll be able to come to a decision much faster. If, for example, you're a generator talking to a projector and you always ask them, hey, do you want pizza? Your projector friend may feel, why aren't you giving me more options? Because they might prefer more options. And so you can actually have that awareness and be able to understand, okay, am I talking to someone that's also generator energy, or is this a projector? And the same goes for if you're a projector talking to a generator, making sure that you're not giving them too many options and you just say, hey, do you want sushi or do you want pizza? Because when you open up to what do you want to eat, you'll get the response of, I don't care, wherever you want to go. And that might be also disappointing, or it might feel annoying to you that your generator friend never knows what they want. It's not that they don't know what they want, it's actually difficult for generator energy to answer these open-ended, thought-based questions. This is something that you can use both in the workplace as well as in your personal life, and it's something that I think has been so important in just navigating how do we communicate with one another, because we can actually work together and come to decisions a lot faster when we just have that awareness. In today's video, I talked about working under pressure. I looked at the transformation arrows based on the perspective of workplace environment, if you are a routine person or not, if you need to have a set work environment or you can work from anywhere, if you are more detail oriented versus big picture oriented, if you prefer to plan sort of that type A energy versus that type B energy, as I call it. And I also discussed communication style. One last thing I want to leave you with is how to navigate looking for a new job. There are certainly many ways that we can do this. However, looking for a new job and being on the job hunt is a really open-ended question for a lot of us. Being that 70% of the population make up generator energy, this can be quite overwhelming. So if you are from the generator box, generator and manifesting generators, I want to invite you to explore the next time you're looking for a job, rather than trying to find a job in the industry or find a job that has a certain title, to really make a pro-con list. What are the yeses that you want in a job? Do you want something that's flexible? Do you want to work with people? Do you want something that is detail-oriented, something that's high pressure? What are the things that you feel like are a yes versus what are the things that you feel like are a no? For example, I have an open root, undefined root energy center. So if I was making this list, I might write that I want something that allows creative space that is not necessarily working under pressure. I would write working under pressure, no. Working with people, yes. And I would just kind of create that list and then see what comes to mind in terms of job opportunities that fit or fall in that line. If you are, for example, thinking about leaving a job, something I've done in the past is taken out this list that I've created and thought, okay, what about my job do I currently not like? What am I not excited by? And when I see that I have more than half of the things ticked off in the con list, in the list that I'm not excited by, I realize, okay, it's time to maybe move on from this job or this opportunity because it's not lighting me up, it's not exciting me, I'm feeling frustrated. I have to recalibrate to allow more excitement or more yes to come in. Now, if you are of the non-energy type and you're looking for a new position or a new role, I invite you to try making a vision board. Try actually getting yourself into the crafts and maybe using Pinterest or magazines and just cutting out things that light you up or things that seem interesting to you. With, again, not defining, okay, what does the job have to be, but what excites you about the opportunity based on visuals, based on creating that sort of collage and thinking about that from an open-ended perspective. These are just ideas. They may or may not serve you. I just wanted to share that from my own experience, myself as a generator working with that pro-con list. And then recently I invited a projector girlfriend to try that Pinterest board idea, and I think it's going to really help her with her job search. So I just wanted to drop that in here, and I hope that you found this video relevant and interesting. If you did, please let me know in the comments below what you learned, or if you have advice on the workplace environment and human design, please let me know. And if you are as excited as I am about human design, please consider subscribing. I put out 2 new videos each week, and my goal really is to continue sharing all about human design from the real world perspective so we can all learn together and operate as our best selves and create more flow in our lives.